It may sound impossible to believe, but there is a creature that possesses a ruthless intelligence beyond anything you can imagine. Millions of years before humans ever understood the idea of class, this tiny organism had already learned how to invade, manipulate minds, and build an organized slave system. It steals the young of other species, deceives them, and forces the victims to serve it for life. A true tyrant of nature. But the absurd truth is this supreme ruler is actually completely useless. Evolved into a war machine, it lost even the most basic ability to survive. It cannot chew food, it cannot clean itself. Without slaves feeding it mouthful by mouthful, it would starve to death right on top of its own food. And trust me, the way the slaves take revenge at the end of this video will make your skin crawl. The Red Ant army charges in like a flood. The Black Ant's defensive wall of soil and stone is broken apart in only seconds. The Black Worker Ants, smaller and more poorly armed, rush out from the nest to defend their kingdom. They bite, they pull, they release formic acid in a desperate attempt to drive the invaders back. The resistance becomes hopeless. Red Ants evolve to become perfect war machines. Their most terrifying weapon lies in their jaws. While the jaws of Black Ants are serrated, delicately designed to crush seeds, cut leaves, and chew tiny insects, the jaws of Red Ants are completely smooth, sharply curved, and gleaming like twin blades. These jaws are too large and too sharp to chew any kind of food. Their only function is this, to pierce the armor of defending ants and clamp onto prey without crushing it. The invaders pour into the underground brood chambers. They ignore the food, ignore the queen, ignore everything. Their only target is the white pupal cocoons, the young black ants still developing inside, not yet emerged. Thousands of cocoons are lifted by those sharp jaws. The Red Ant army turns 180 degrees, carrying the spoils, and retreats back to its own nest with absolute precision. In one summer, a red ant colony can carry out dozens of raids like this, taking away as many as 3,000 to 5,000 young from another species. But why do they not eat those young as food? The answer behind that is even more horrifying than death itself. Bringing strange cocoons back to their own nest is an incredibly dangerous move. Sooner or later, the black ants will emerge. What happens if thousands of black ants realize they are standing inside the enemy's lair? A rebellion would certainly flatten the red ant colony. Nature solved this problem with an exquisitely deceptive mechanism, chemical weaponry. In the world of ants, vision is almost useless in the darkness underground. They see and recognize one another entirely through scent. Every ant colony possesses its own unique chemical passport, a mixture of hydrocarbons coating the outer shell of the body. The moment the black ant cocoons are brought in, they are stripped of their identity. The captors use special glands near the mouth and abdomen to secrete a specialized chemical coating, repeatedly licking and spreading it across the victim's cocoons. This process continues for many days. The coating is so powerful that it completely erases the original scent of the black ants and overrides it with the characteristic scent of the red ant colony. When the young black ants tear open their cocoons and emerge, the first sense to activate is smell. They smell the red ants. They smell that same scent on their own bodies. Everything matches perfectly. The brains of the newborn black ants instantly register, this is my home, these are my family. There's no physical imprisonment, no shackles, no chains. The black ants are bound by their own instincts. They immediately throw themselves into work. They clean the nest, care for the eggs of the red ant queen, and leave the nest to gather food to feed the very ones who destroyed their own kind. A permanent cycle of servitude begins. Now we come to one of the most ironic truths in ecology. These powerful rulers are actually the weakest and most dependent creatures of all. Possessing a free labor force for millions of years has pushed this parasitic ant species into an evolutionary trap with no escape. They have completely lost the most basic ability to survive on their own. Remember their sharp sickle-shaped jaws? That weapon is perfect for fighting, but it leaves them unable to chew food for themselves, unable to dig a nest, and unable to care for their own young. Scientists carried out a strict ecological experiment. They separated the red ants from their servant workers. The red ants were placed inside a box filled with the best food, sugar, water, and nutrient solution. The result? The red ants completely collapsed in the middle of a pile of food. They wandered in confusion, unable to get food into their mouths and unable to clean their own bodies. Their existence depends 100% on the labor ants. To survive, the red ants forced the black ants to feed them mouth to mouth. The black ants used their serrated jaws to grind up insects and plant matter, partially digested in their stomachs, then approach the masterminds. The two ants touch antennae, a coded signal of communication. The black worker then regurgitates the pre-processed liquid food directly into the mouth of the red ant. This phenomenon is called trophallaxis. A mature parasitic ant colony can be made up of as much as 80% or 90% servant ants. Only about 10% to 20% are the ruling red ants. These rulers spend the entire day doing nothing but resting in dark tunnels, consuming the food brought back by the labor force, and waiting. They wait until the workforce grows old and dies. Then the fighting instinct rises again, and they emerge to the surface once more, becoming a threat to another black ant colony. But how does this entire empire begin in the first place? How can a colony be formed when the ones at the top cannot do anything for themselves? The answer lies in a coup so refined that it is almost unbelievable. Everything begins at the end of summer, when a young red ant queen leaves her mother colony to build a kingdom of her own. But unlike the queens of other ant species, who dig a small chamber, lay their first batch of eggs, and care for them by themselves, the red ant queen cannot do that. She would not survive for even a few days if she tried. Instead, she chooses to become a lone infiltrator. She moves silently through the forest, searching for a black ant colony that is functioning normally. Once she finds her target, the red queen uses chemical invisibility. She releases an extremely powerful pheromone from her Dufour's gland, completely scrambling the communication system of the black ant guards. This chemical panic paralyzes the black ants' defense line, causing them to attack one another or flee instead of stopping the intruder. Taking advantage of the chaos, the red queen slips straight into the central chamber, the place where the black queen, the true ruler of the nest, resides. There, a purge takes place. The red queen drives her sharp jaws into the head or neck of the black queen, killing the victim in an instant. But that is not the end of the event. The invader begins licking the body fluids of the fallen queen and rolling across the corpse so that she covers her own body in the scent of authority. She has successfully stolen the royal identity. When the black worker ants enter the central chamber, they do not attack the intruder at all. Deceived by the familiar scent of their old queen now coming from the body of the invader, they submit obediently. They begin caring for this red queen, feeding her, and most importantly, tending the eggs laid by the new ruler. A few weeks later, the first generation of red ants hatches. They immediately join the fighting force and begin organizing raids outside the colony to bring back more black ant pupae, replacing the labor force that is aging out. A new empire is officially established on decay and deception. By this point, the ecosystem may seem like a picture of absolute injustice, where opportunists always win. However, nature always carries a law of compensation, a balancing force that ensures no species can manipulate the system forever. Evolutionary ecologists have discovered a shocking phenomenon. The black ants are not completely passive machines. After millions of years of enduring parasitism, some black ant populations have evolved a hidden defensive instinct, creating silent uprisings deep underground. Remember that the servant ants must care for the eggs and pupae of the ruling red ants. When the eggs hatch into larvae, the black ants still faithfully feed those larvae. Everything appears normal. But the turning point comes when the red ant larvae enter the cocoon stage in preparation for molting into adults. At this sensitive stage, the chemical camouflage of the red ant pupae sometimes fails or develops a scent that is too distinct. The fine-tuned sense of smell in some black worker ants suddenly awakens. They detect a tiny irregularity, but one that is enough to trigger a defensive instinct. The moment they recognize that what lies inside the cocoon is not one of their own, but a dangerous parasite, the black worker ants instantly change their attitude. From devoted caretakers, they become executioners. They tear open the cocoon shell, they drag the unfinished red ant pupae out, destroy their biological structure, or throw them out of the nest to remove them completely. Field observations show that in some colonies, worker ants have destroyed as much as 60%, even 80% of the daughters of their rulers. A research team from Johannes Gutenberg University tracked ant colonies in New York and Ohio for many years. They were astonished to record that in areas where red ants raided most aggressively, the rate of rebellion among worker ants was 3 times higher than normal. They are learning how to resist. This ecological event has a deep resemblance to the collapse of great empires in human history. When a system depends too heavily on an outside labor force, it creates the risk of being broken apart from within. By killing future generations of red ants while they are still in the cradle, the black ants cannot free themselves. They will still end their lives as servants. But this determined sacrifice blocks the population growth of the red ants, leaving them without enough numbers to launch raids on other black ant colonies in the wild. That is the miraculous adaptation shaped by natural selection. A sacrificial act by one generation to protect the survival of the entire species beyond the nest. The story of parasitic ants and their endless ecological war completely shatters our romantic view of nature. Nature is not made only of harmonious symbiosis or united colonies. Hidden beneath the layer of rotting leaves is a complex ecological network where survival is built on deception, cognitive manipulation, overthrow, and generational purges. The usurper seems to hold all power, yet remains imprisoned by its own weakness. The servant force seems fragile, yet holds the ability to destroy the entire enemy kingdom from within. Looking at this underground war, we cannot help but shudder when we see the reflection of human society in it. Any system that depends entirely on stealing the resources of others while losing the ability to survive on its own will eventually collapse under the very force it controls. An ecosystem has never been a straight line. It is a brutal struggle where every evolutionary advantage comes with a heavy price. What do you think about this self-balancing mechanism of nature? Do you see similarities between this ecological model and other social structures? Share your scientific perspective in the comments. If you think this video offers a deeply analytical view of the natural world, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There are still many astonishing biological phenomena waiting for us to explore in the next videos. See you again.